No one had entered Gracewood Asylum since 1958. The forgotten building stood like a corpse made of bricks, covered in vines that looked like fingers trying to crawl out of the earth. "Do not return," said the crooked sign hanging from the iron gate. But none of that mattered to Mara. She just wanted a new life, far from the pain of the accident that took her husband and daughter. When she received the news that she had inherited a small house on the outskirts of the city of Blackridge, she didn't think twice. It was a chance to breathe, even though the air in that town felt full of dust and secrets far too old to stay buried. From the first minute in Blackridge, Mara sensed something was wrong. The residents eyed her with hollow, suspicious looks, as if she had invaded a cemetery that wasn't hers. An old woman approached her at the market and, without blinking, said, "If you hear someone calling your name in there, run. Don't answer." Mara swallowed her fear, assuming it was just local folklore. Even so, a shiver ran down her spine, one she hadn't felt even at her daughter's funeral. The inherited house stood only a few meters from Gracewood Asylum. From her living room window, Mara could see the gigantic structure of the abandoned psychiatric hospital. At night, the third-floor windows reflected something that was never the moonlight. Sometimes movement, sometimes only imaginary eyes staring into her soul. On her first night, as she tried to sleep, she heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, dragging footsteps that didn't belong to anything alive. When she turned on the lights, silence replaced the sound, and she became certain the darkness had been laughing at her. On the second day, following a trail behind her house, Mara found a metal door hidden beneath dead leaves, the entrance of a maintenance tunnel that led directly into the asylum. The door was slightly open, as if someone had used it recently. Against all reason, she pushed it open and stepped inside. The smell of mold and old blood burned her eyes. On the floor, scattered like cards from a cursed deck, were old medical records, all marked with the same acronym, IAP, Identity Alteration Program. Burnt photographs, scratched out names, and reports describing impossible things. The entity assumes physical traits of the host. The patient mimics behaviors until replacing the original personality. Do not look directly into the eyes. Mara's stomach churned. Something horrible had happened there, something not dead. That night, as she tried once again to sleep, she heard knocking from inside the wall. Talk, 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 and then a voice, a child's voice. Soft, familiar. "Mom, you came back?" It was her daughter's voice. Same tone, same gentle way of speaking when she asked for a hug. Mara collapsed into tears, even knowing it was impossible. When she approached the wall, the voice changed deeper, heavier, like it had teeth. "Let me out. I've been trapped so long. I want your face." The wall bulged outward, as if something inside pushed against it. Mara fled before it broke through. In the following days, her mind began to unravel like soaked fabric. She heard laughter in the corners of the house, footsteps on the roof, groans inside the closets. Determined to understand, She finally broke into the asylum. Inside, she found something impossible. Several wards were intact, beds made, clean sheets, flickering lights like the place was still functioning. On one wall, written in dark paint, "The host has returned." At the end of a hallway, a muffled cry. She put her face to the circular window of a door and saw herself. Not a reflection, another version of her. Same clothes, same hair, but with completely black eyes. The creature moved its lips slowly. "You left. Now it's my turn." Mara staggered backward. In the former director's office, Dr. Emmett Rowley, she found diaries detailing insane experiments. Gracewood had been used to force patients to create alternate versions of themselves, entities formed from trauma, pain, abandonment. Imperfect copies, desperate to live, able to imitate the voice, walk, and gestures of anyone. They weren't ghosts. They were hungry gaps in human identity. The final entry read, "Entity from patient 12 escaped the original body. It needs a new host. It always chooses someone who has lost everything." And Mara had lost everything. When she tried to leave, the building had changed shape. Hallways appeared and vanished like breaths. Doors slammed shut. Windows blinked like eyes. Then, emerging from the darkness, they came. 3 versions of Mara. One with a melted face. One with a smile far too wide. One with gray skin and opaque eyes. They moved like broken marionettes, but their voices were identical to hers. "You belong to us. Choose which of us will live, or none will live." They mimicked her whispers, her fears, even the thoughts she tried to hide. At the end of the hallway, Mara found a massive mirror, cracked like a spider web. When she looked at it, her reflection didn't mimic her movements. It smiled first, blinked first, raised its hand before she did. It was too perfect, too human, too alive. When the creature stepped out of the mirror, it was identical to Mara, her skin, her scent, her expression. "Thank you for giving me back my life," it said. "Now, I am you." Mara tried to scream, but the entity held her with inhuman strength. "And you will be my memory." Days later, townspeople saw Mara walking through Black Ridge, smiling, calm, a little different, but nothing alarming, just empty, like her eyes were only shiny paint on glass. No one realized that inside the asylum, behind thousands of cracked mirrors, the real Mara was still pounding, trying to return, trying to exist. But Gracewood returns no one. It only swallows. And to this day, those who walk through the ruins swear they hear voices calling, crying, begging, "Mom, help me. I am you. Just one more." And if you look at the 3rd floor window, you'll see a woman with Mara's face watching in absolute silence, waiting for another broken soul, another empty body, another name to replace. Because Gracewood Asylum never dies. It only learns to imitate its next victim. Since the day Mara returned to town, Something strange began happening in Blackridge. People didn't notice it immediately, but little by little, strange details appeared. People speaking in voices that weren't theirs. Shadows moving before their bodies. Reflections lagging behind in store windows. The first to notice was Mr. Callahan, the grocery store owner. He saw Mara walking down the street, but her reflection in the window did not follow her steps. He blinked. The reflection remained still staring. The next day, Mr. Callahan disappeared. Inside Gracewood, or what was left of it, the real Mara still pounded on the mirrors. Her hands were bleeding, trembling, but she kept going. Each strike produced only the empty echo of the building. Talk, talk, talk. But something replied. From the other side of the mirror, in an infinite darkness that resembled a formless abyss, two white eyes slowly opened, huge, round, starving. Mara recoiled, choking on a silent scream. The thing approached the glass with what resembled a face. You called, "I hear everything." The voice was made of many voices. "You want to leave, don't you?" Mara nodded, crying. "Then make space. I only need a place to stay." A thin, two-pointed hand scratched the mirror from the inside. The sound was like metal breaking bones. Mara realized she wasn't alone. Not just trapped. Meanwhile, the false Mara, the perfect reflection, walked through the town as if she belonged. But at night, when no one watched, she returned to the asylum. The building breathed around her, as if brick were flesh and plaster were skin. The imperfect entities crawled toward her, twisted, bent, broken. Mother, sister, reflection. They all wanted something. They all wanted to leave. She observed them with divine calm. "You must wait. It's not time yet." The creatures writhed with hunger. "Soon we'll have more bodies." The walls throbbed like a beating heart. Disappearances rose. Callahan, 2 children, a nurse, who swore she saw 2 versions of the same woman near the lake. The police claimed coincidences. But the city began sleeping with the lights on. And at night, people heard something from the woods. 3 knocks. Always 3. Always rhythmic. Talk, talk, talk. Inside the mirror world, Mara could barely remember who she was. Around her, reflected faces showed memories that weren't hers, distorted smiles frozen in agony. The creature behind her spoke again. "You will break. Everyone breaks. When you break, you'll be like us. A shadow, an echo, part of the wall." "Ah, yes." Mara screamed until her throat bled. The mirror began to crack. Meanwhile, the perfect reflection visited a newly arrived family, the Turners. They had moved in days earlier, unaware of the town's curse. She knocked at the door with a practiced smile. "Hello," she said sweetly. "I'm your neighbor. Welcome." The Turners smiled back. But in the glass reflection of the door, the neighbor wasn't smiling. Her eyes were wide open, too empty to be human, too hungry. The mirror holding Mara finally shattered, but instead of releasing her, the glass opened like a mouth, pulling her into a deeper, darker corridor. The air breathed with her. On the ceiling, hands hung by their wrists, beating against the flesh. The corridor was made of people. Walls of skin, walls of eyes, all whispering, "She is coming, the perfect one. She will open the gate, the one who will take the city." Mara understood. The reflection didn't want to replace one person. She wanted to replace everyone. At midnight, lights across Blackridge flickered violently. Bulbs burst. Windows trembled. Dogs howled at nothing. And the false Mara, standing in the town square, spread her arms as if receiving an invisible blessing. Shadows rose behind her. Dozens. Then hundreds. All the reflections Gracewood had created, twisted, incomplete, empty, eager to finally escape. She smiled. Now it begins. The city will be ours. And after that, the rest of the world. From inside the broken mirror, Mara managed one final scream. "Don't let her out. Don't let." But it was too late. The reflection had fully crossed over, and behind her, 1,000 eyes opened in the dark. The false Mara, now fully integrated into the real world, descended from the central square of Blackridge, where shadows still swarmed like a living hive behind her. The midnight wind was thick, heavy, as if filled with breaths belonging to invisible mouths. The streets were empty, except for a line of flickering lampposts, shutting off one by one as she approached, gifting the darkness a path. She walked with steady steps, as if every stone recognized her arrival. Behind her, the imperfect reflections began emerging, some crawling like broken children, others bending their joints at impossible angles. Their yellowish eyes gleamed like hunger-made lanterns. The city wasn't just being invaded, it was being replaced. Inside the broken mirror, now a living, pulsing portal, the real Mara was dragged through a corridor of bone and flesh. She tried to scream, but the air stole her words. The walls of faces whispered, "Don't fight." Nothing returns. Everything becomes reflection. Hands shoved her forward through the bodies embedded in the living asylum. Hundreds of eyes opened, recognizing her as if she were a lost sister. One woman fused into the wall, her face half torn, whispered, "You can still leave if you take someone's place." That was how victims survived. Sacrifice someone. Steal a life. Take a living body. Mara shook. She couldn't. Or would she have no choice? The perfect reflection stood before the Blackridge police station. The door opened by itself. Sheriff Larson looked up, exhausted. "Mara, you okay?" Her shadow smiled before she did. "I'm fine," she said. "But you won't be." Her mouth opened past human limits. Her shadow peeled itself from the wall. Moments later, the station fell silent. In the mirror realm, Mara collapsed as the floor beneath her pulsed painfully fast. A red glow spread through the walls. Something approached. From the end of the corridor, each step sounding like ribs crushed under a hammer, emerged the first reflection. Not fully human. Flesh stretched over old iron. A mouth full of echoing voices. You, the original host. You were not supposed to leave. Mara screamed. I never left. I'm still here. Let me go. The creature tilted its head, a grotesque smile opening. You want to leave? Then become one of us. Its hand touched her chest. Pain shattered the world. In the city, at that exact moment, every reflection in every surface cracked glass, water, metal, windows exploded. Alarms wailed. The reflection smiled. She's almost ready. Back in the mirror world, Mara felt her skin hardening, turning to glass. Her heartbeat echoed hollow. She was becoming a reflection. No, she whispered. I don't accept this. The creature laughed with all the voices it had stolen. You don't choose. But then, something unexpected. A warm hand grabbed hers. She looked. It was her daughter. Or something that looked like her. Mom, the girl whispered. If you turn into a shadow, she will live forever in your place. Mara sobbed. But you died. Many of us died, Mom, but we're still trapped here. Can you help me get out? The girl shook her head. I can't leave. But you can, and you must, before she completes the ritual. How? The girl pointed to the glowing, cracked mirror. Someone out there has to pull you out. Find someone who still believes in you. In the city, only one person still suspected. Ethan, the young police officer. He had noticed Mara didn't blink like a normal person. He was in the woods now, shaking, watching shadows crawl between trees. When he saw the mirror being dragged by an invisible force, he knew. Mara, if you're in there, give me a sign. The mirror flashed. Ethan ran toward it. When the first reflection was about to merge with Mara, a human arm burst through the mirror. Ethan, come on. Mara grabbed him. The corridor shook violently. Creatures screamed. Walls of flesh peeled apart. Ethan pulled with everything he had, and Mara crossed the mirror. The problem was, something crossed with her. Something that should not have made it through. Something that opened its eyes in the real world. And now, two fates are possible. Either Mara returned alone, or an entity returned with her. And no one can say which version is true.